Let's go back together a year. Is it not a little puzzling that the Russia-Ukraine war broke out immediately following the US pullout from Afghanistan? Does the system possibly need to be in a permanent state of conflict, anxiety, or crisis? Go back to June 1st, 1951. At McGill University in Montreal, CIA personnel are gathering to discuss studies involving emotional deprivation. In a report to the CIA, Dr. Ewan Cameron, who performed the tests and is regarded as the inventor of contemporary torture methods, claims that shocking a person will cause them to lose their judgment and make them more receptive to recommendations. Different ways can be used to shock subjects. For instance, waking the subject up loudly from sleep, using what are known as physiological and sociological isolation phobias against them, and preventing them from falling asleep forcibly. After these shocks, the subject lowers their guard towards cooperation. According to CIA documents declassified in 2007, their organizations have put these techniques into practice and have even used them not only in interrogations, but also in social engineering. During that period, Milton Friedman, who taught at the University of Chicago and played a crucial role in shaping the modern economic system, was also one of the significant figures. He wanted to use the results of these conducted experiments in their economic roadmaps. We can even call Milton Friedman the founder of liberalism. He has a dislike for regulations, stating, "I must have the freedom to be greedy." Another statement of his goes, "Only a crisis actualizes real change." It's almost like a joke of a man. It's infuriating to see whose hands our lives and future are in, and to know that these foolish individuals will put their ideas into action. While irrelevant individuals like Milton Friedman and Ewan Cameron were strengthening these thoughts, they began testing their idea of societal engineering that they wanted to implement, of course, initially in third world countries. When will you idiots put an end to the notion of the big fish eating the small fish? There are many examples related to this. Take Chile, for instance. In the 1950s and 1960s, their governments paved the way for the country with significant incentives and investments in healthcare, education, and industry. However, American businesses started to lose their clout and earnings this time. They went straight to the CIA for assistance. They imparted Milton Friedman's neoliberal ideals to Chilean university students by offering scholarships to them. The Chilean economy was subjected to the shock doctrine by the CIA. They forced the closure of factories, stopped output, and bought off the unions. They planned a coup and backed General Pinochet. Following the coup, countless numbers of individuals were detained, tortured, and murdered. When Pinochet took control of the government, he immediately implemented the principles of the Chicago Economic School. Sell off everything owned by the state, privatize, and remove controls on major corporations. Open up imports, reduce public spending, and of course they saw the results within just 1 year. That result was a staggering 375% inflation. The unbridled capitalism severed from its chains, as implemented in Chile, quickly spread to other South American countries. The CIA consistently employed the same tactic, orchestrating coups to install their chosen leaders and enforcing neoliberal policies in those countries. After each operation, the country's currency would experience a significant devaluation. While the purchasing power of the people decreased, the governing minority became incredibly wealthy. This fire then expanded throughout the West and the rest of the globe with the help of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. Before Reagan, a CEO made 43 times as much money as the typical worker. This ratio reached a high of 300 after Reagan. Neoliberal policies were established in Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, and the cunning individuals who lay their hands on the wealth of the state, even though they rapidly seized the riches of the government, the country as a whole battled with poverty. Isn't it fantastic? If we are not one of these worthless scoundrels, we are completely open to manipulation and are compelled to accept pay that is below the value of our labor. You useless rascals are geniuses. Of course, they are referred to as oligarchs in Russia, while entrepreneurial businessmen in the West. By 1998, 80% of farmers in Russia had gone bankrupt. 70,000 state-owned factories had been shut down. The shock doctrine is the subject of Canadian author Naomi Klein's book, which delves into the changes made in the aftermath of disasters. Disasters can be natural or human-made, but the people who experience the aftermath of such disasters find themselves unable to safeguard their long-term interests and become blinded. Social memory is erased and reprogrammed, and things that seemed impossible just 3 years ago suddenly become normalized. For instance, manipulations experienced on social media, the spread of false news, can lead many of us to make decisions in just a few hours, or stock market manipulations. The news that comes out, the buying and selling of major companies, all of it is meant to steer us. Take, for example, the company MicroStrategy. We've been hearing news for years about their purchases of Bitcoin. But strangely, every time they buy Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin drops significantly. These guys are truly clever. They are really good at sucking our blood like vampires. With each Bitcoin purchase, MicroStrategy ends up selling more without disclosing much. They are as cunning as a fox. Furthermore, the ubiquitous transmission of commercials. How many advertisements do we view each day? I'd want to ask you a query. Do you recall those endearing advertisements that give you the impression that happiness depends on the purchase of a certain item, or sensational news articles meant to incite rage? These strategies prey on our feelings, clouding our judgment and affecting how we make decisions. Large organizations and the media frequently use selected information to influence us. They manipulate the narrative by emphasizing some elements of a story while leaving out others. This may distort our perspective of reality and cause us to make judgments that serve their interests. Consider how media sources could highlight a single unfortunate incident inside a neighborhood, giving the impression that the whole area is hazardous. Or think about how businesses could exaggerate a product's advantages while downplaying its drawbacks. The media and large companies are fully aware of the fact that every one of us has our own thoughts and perspectives. They take use of our confirmation bias, which is the propensity to look for evidence that supports our preconceptions. They never get satisfied with sucking our blood, because they know that everything unfolds as they desire through manipulations. Sometimes they profit, sometimes they seize control of countries' administrations, and sometimes they can easily manage millions. We shouldn't remain under the influence of these absurdities any longer and become puppets. Our lives are not so insignificant. What do you think about manipulations that have the potential to shape our lives, the futures of countries, and the world order? I eagerly await your comments. Take care of yourself until the next video.